everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video must add for week 13 of the fantasy hockey season. Happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year, I guess, because this will be out before that. And then I won't see you guys till after that as well. So happy holidays and Happy New Year. As always, a video presented by FanDuel Canada, North America's #1 sportsbook. The link is in the description below. Back to a regular week here for fantasy hockey, which is really nice after this week. Very strange, short week, obviously because of Christmas and everything. But we are back to a couple teams playing 4 games, a couple teams playing 2 games, and then a bulk of the teams playing 3 games. So the teams playing 4 games for week 13, you have Anaheim. And to be honest, I think I'd try to stay far, far away from any player on Anaheim this week, considering they play New Jersey, who's been one of the best defensive teams in the NHL the last 2 weeks before the break. Winnipeg, if Connor Hellebuck, you don't really want to fuck with that. The Oilers, and then Tampa is probably the only really good matchup, considering they're a much better offensive team than defensively. And then you have Boston, Carolina, Nashville, New York, Toronto, Utah. And then the 2 teams that play 2 games is the Senators and the Kings. I would have suggested to pick up Shane Pinto, but with him playing 2 games, I'd like to see kind of how the Senators find their footing after the break. And then we'll kind of go from there. So I think I have 6 people to pick up this week. Let's get into it. All right, so the first guy we're going to be picking up is Luke Hughes on the New Jersey Devils. Currently 47% rostered in Yahoo Fantasy Hockey Leagues. He's had a pretty slow start to the year, I kind of want to say, in terms of like points production, but I really, really like what we've seen from him on this stretch of really good hockey that the Devils are playing before the break. He's playing with Brett Pesce right now, next to Meyer on the point on the second power play. His on-ice expected goals for percentage is staggering in the week prior to the break. So the 15th of December to the 23rd, he had a 75% on-ice expected goals for percentage, which is absurd. Just really involved in everything offensive for the Devils. 1 goal and 5 points over that stretch as well, which is second on the team, including forwards. I know the Devils only have 3 games for this upcoming week, but Anaheim and San Jose are 2 of those 3 games. Those are really bad penalty kills, and they give up a ton of shots. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for Luke Hughes to be a good streamer this week, and maybe just to stay on rosters. Obviously, this pickup is for people in like the 10 to 12 man leagues. If you're in anything deeper than that, I'd imagine he's already picked up. All right, the next guy we're going to be looking at, we have 2 Boston Bruins players. The first one is going to be Elias Lindholm on the Boston Bruins. As I just mentioned, 37% roster, playing the center position on that second line with Brad Marchand. They've really found a good connection. That goal against Washington, the 2 of them are playing really well together. I think we're going to see Elias Lindholm kind of flourish on this Bruins team with their new head coach in the second half of the season here. He's taken a lot of flack over the last 2.5 years. I just didn't think he was necessarily happy the situation he was in. I think he's much happier on the Boston Bruins at this point, maybe not to start the year, considering there's obviously a lot of turmoil. But as I mentioned, since the start of the new coach, he's been playing much better. And if you look at his stats before the break, the last week before, he led the team in shots over the previous 4 games with about 14 shots on goal, is creating a decent amount of individual offense, and then playing with Marchand, who's finding him in spots to score, and he's starting to put up some points. So Elias Lindholm, I think, is a great streamer. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, the Bruins play 4 games. So if you need a center, and centers there's tons of them available on your waiver wire. At 37% rostered, I'd imagine he's going to be pretty widely available in a decent amount of leagues. All right, the next guy we're picking up, now we're looking at guys at the 20% rostered range. Cole Perfetti on the Winnipeg Jets has that center and left wing abilities for Yahoo Fantasy Hockey Leagues if you're playing in those leagues. And I'd imagine similar positions in other leagues other than just Yahoo. Top line, obviously, of Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde on Winnipeg will still dominate. But he's shown flashes of solid growth, development, production, I want to say, over the last 2-3 weeks, even the last month. He has a goal, 3 assists in his last 4 games before the break. 3rd on the team in offense created over that span as well. Playing on the second line with Nemestikov and Nick Ehlers, and on the point of the second power play as well. So the guy has an incredible shot, really good hands, super skilled. So I think we're going to see him continue to kind of grow into his offensive role with this team. And you look at Winnipeg's bottom 6, right? And he just doesn't fit in with a lot of those guys. Like he's not a player that can play in that bottom 6. So if he's going to be playing with the Jets, he's going to be playing in their top 6. And he can be a reliable top 6 scorer on the Jets. with the skill and the tools he has available to him. If you look at the bottom six on Winnipeg, right, like Mason Appleton, like Adam Lowry, Aaron Iafallo, or Alex Alafalo, excuse me, Morgan Barron, just a lot of like more hard-nosed forecheckers. Perfetti, obviously a little bit smaller, but has a wicked shot. So I like Perfetti for this upcoming week, and I think he could be a relatively good longevity add for the rest of the season as his role continues to grow. All right, now we run with the Dungeon Dwellers, guys that are less than 10% rostered. Jack Roslovic on the Carolina Hurricanes, 6% rostered, 14 goals on the season. Pretty surprising. I'm sure a lot of people probably haven't realized that he's up to 14 goals already through 34 games. He's like right on the cusp, in my opinion, of a good streamer for this week, because the matchups make him a viable option, in my opinion. Sure, they play Florida, Carolina, but they also play Columbus, who at this point I think is the worst defensive team in the NHL, considering all the injuries that they have and just the lineup that they're playing out right now. Minnesota, who has a ton of injuries. This is going to be going on Saturday, so the day before, Kaprizov got listed out with a lower body injury, so didn't travel with the team to Dallas, and then Pittsburgh as well. Is also a team that's pretty poor defensively. He's playing on that first line with Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis, and now on the point on the second power play as well. He's been bouncing around this lineup all year, kind of like Rob Brindamore does with his lines. Like, I think Roslovic is also a player that can play the first line and the fourth line. We've seen him play on both this season, but he still has a great opportunity this week. So if you need a guy who's going to score on really not too many shots, like on the season, 68 shots in 34 games, it's pretty much exactly 2 shots per game. So, but he's finding his opportunities and playing with guys like Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. He's going to be able to find the net and find the back of the net as well. So Jack Roslovic is a pretty good streamer, I would say, for this week, considering the matchups and considering, the opportunity that he's playing right now on this Hurricanes team. All right, I mentioned there's 2 Boston players that we're going to be picking up. The first one was Elias Lindholm. The second one, Morgan Geekie on the Boston Bruins, has that center and right wing availability for Yahoo Fantasy Hockey Leagues. 4% rostered. Pretty surprised to see how low he's rostered. Right now playing on the first line with Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. 63.4 expected goals for percentage this line has created together so far this season. Very, very solid numbers there across the board. As I mentioned, playing on that first line, he's on the point of the second power play, which seems to be a theme for this must-add. 4 power play points on the season. Very skilled for such a big frame. Very skilled. Soft hands, can score a ton of goals in front of the net as well, especially when you're playing with David Pastrnak. You need that guy in front who's going to be tipping the pucks, and then also just creating traffic as well. So I think Pastrnak and Zacha have found a pretty good, solid young winger in Geekie as well. So 3 points his last 4 games before the break. Also, I mentioned Elias Lindholm led the team in shots in that span until the break. Kind of now you're seeing Morgan Geekie. He's just 2 shots behind David Pastrnak in the third spot with 11. Great streamer this week. They play Washington, the Rangers, Toronto, and the Islanders. So lots of opportunity for Morgan Geekie. 4% rostered. If he continues to stay in this role with Boston, I can't imagine his availability in Yahoo Fantasy Hockey Leagues or any fantasy hockey leagues is going to be very large. All right, I talked about this guy last week, but I have to bring him up again because he's still 0% rostered, and Nashville plays 4 games this week against 4 teams that this guy can definitely kind of get some points against. And it's Zach Lurcher. Again, super sleeper, obviously had 0% roster. I talked about the fact that Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett have given this guy a little bit of a longer leash. Since December 11th, he's top 30 in individual expected goals for. And if you look at that number even closer now, since December 15th, he's 20th in individual expected goals for across the NHL. So he's just continuing to improve, which is awesome. He's also played a career high 17 minutes or above 17 minutes for the first time in his NHL career against Carolina on the 23rd, right before the break happened as well. I talked about this. He could be a Kiefer Sherwood 2.0 at this point. He has 95 hits already on the season, which is nuts. And I mentioned his consistency throughout games. Like, he averages 3 to 4 hits per game now, which is great to see, playing on that second line with O'Reilly and Nyquist. Biggest reason, as I mentioned, 4 games this week going up against Winnipeg, Minnesota, Vancouver, and Calgary. I think all games that Nashville can be competitive in. Playing in the top 6 at 0% rostered is just kind of crazy, especially if he's continuing to play 17 minutes a game and getting 3 hits per game, along with, at this point, over the last week or so, almost a point per game. So I think this is a really good pickup if you're in deep leagues, especially if you're in your bankers leagues and you need those hits. Leher is someone that you should definitely keep on your radar. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of Must Add Week 13. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.